What's up, everybody? Mark with Card Vox Academy here, and you probably noticed that this intro to our co-reaction is a little bit different because I've got the vocalist of Larcenia Row, Ryan, right at the beginning. What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
How we doing, guys? I'm doing fantastic.
Good. So we just had an interesting experience. We finished recording a co-reaction to your song "Smile," Ryan, and my whole computer took a shit, didn't it?
It did. It took a big one. Our video was going so well. I was really enjoying it, and it was too good. And the computer gods shut it down. So,
Computer Zocht 9 is essentially what happened, and but thankfully, the one thing that my computer did not delete, the video was just ruined. But the one thing that did not get corrupt was the audio, my voice. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put up the co-reaction podcast style with some screenshots and stuff, because talking to you about your vocals, I learned some stuff I had no idea about before. I learned a completely new approach to my lows, and I want everybody to hear that because that was such a cool experience. And I think our reaction that we just did was up there with the Dickie Allen one, which is one of my favorites on the channel. I think anyway. You got to give yourself some more credit. So, everybody, what we're going to do is we are going to put up the reaction podcast style, so you get all of Ryan's good information. And I'm not going to bore you with the intro because it'll be in the podcast. And anything, and Ryan, thank you so much for your patience, because everybody watching, this is actually the second time we've re-recorded this interview because my computer acted dumb again. But it's looking good now.
patience is important, and it's an opportunity to handle our stressors and not destroy furniture, and
No, let me be mad. Don't take this from me. This is all my rage is all I have, man. All right, well, let's go ahead. Let's jump into this podcast style co-reaction. Definitely watch it. We're going to have the video going and the music going and everything, but Ryan here, you had some amazing information. So hopefully people stick around and watch the whole thing. Watch the whole thing.
Watch the whole thing from start to finish, and I promise at some point you will smile, and that's all we want.
That's all we want. So here we go. Here's the thing. Yeah. What's up, everybody? Mark with Sharts in My Socks Academy here. And today we're doing another co-reaction. We haven't done one of these in a long time, but these are some of my favorite videos to do because I get to literally hear the vocals and talk about vocal techniques from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And it's a lot of fun to do. I always feel like I learn a little bit when I do these videos. Now, the song, the band, I should say, that we're covering, I'm pretty excited about this. So Larcenia Row is the band that we're covering. Many of you liked when I reacted to them a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And, oftentimes with these reaction videos, it's like, first time hearing Opeth. And it's like, no, it's freaking not. That's first time hearing the Faceless, go home. But this was definitely my first time hearing this band. And it was wild. It was wild. And at the end of the video, I saw a thumbnail, and I was like, what the heck is this thumbnail? And it was for a song called Smile. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, I got to give y'all something to skip. That's what I'm here for. So again, my name is Mark. I am a metal vocalist myself. Very different from Larcenia Row, but some similarities maybe. It's a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. Check us out if you want to. And I'm a full-time metal vocal coach. What I do is I teach people how to make crazy sounds safely and efficiently so they don't hurt themselves and they can follow their metal dreams. And that's what I do. And it's a lot of fun. I take the reaction video content here. I slow it down. I pause a lot. There are commentary-free versions on Spotify. If you just type in the band name and the song, you can listen to my commentary-free versions there. And that's it. So if you like the content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to watch the channel grow. And after a short, awkward YouTube pause, we're going to pull in Ryan Vail. Now let me undo this. Okay. I forgot to do a little test, but it's fine. Everything's looking really good. And then I will get rid of that one. And here we go. Ryan, what's up, dude? How you doing?
How we doing, Mark? I'm very, very, very excited to be on here. big fan of the channel. I've been watching it for a couple of years now. So, you know, being able to chat with you and being able to watch our odd creations together it's going to be very, very fun.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited because like the last video, people just kept saying it in the comments. They're like, you got to react to this band. You got to react to this band. And oftentimes we don't take a whole lot of suggestions from the comments. We do sometimes, but for some reason, dude, I don't know what it was. I was just feeling spicy. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And so kind of on a lark, I pulled it up, and the chaos ensued. And there were a lot of places with your vocals where, like, you know, obviously I could talk about like the fundamentals and the basics, but I was like, there's some stuff going on here that's really interesting. So, you know, getting some insight from you about the way that it feels, the way that you produce these sounds, all this stuff is going to be super fun. So I appreciate you giving us some of your time and hanging out here today, man.
Definitely. Yeah. This is really cool for me. I gotta say, we are a newer band. I've been in music for a little bit now, but you know, this is, you know, just giving us a little bit of your audience on the channel, man. I can't thank you enough. So let's do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good, man. I appreciate it. So, you know, and for anybody who's not checked out Larcenia Row, if you like this song, well, I was gonna say it's like the others, but I don't actually know. But I assume it's at least on you know, it's kind of similar enough. But like it's like, man. Okay, I'm gonna save my questions for later. Let's skip right to the most important question. First and foremost, oftentimes I will ask vocalists when I have them as guests on the channel. I'll say like, hey, you know, do you want to give me any insight? What should I expect? What's the content of the song? Or do you want me to go in blind? And it's your choice. It's your choice. But what do you think?
I would say that just be prepared. If you are viewing this, there is some flashing lights. You'll have to see the warning. So yeah, just be prepared. And yeah, you're gonna see some grotesque, you know, things. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, just really have your ears open, I would say, and just be ready to smile.
Be ready to smile. Okay. All right. Well, let's all get smiley. We're gonna check out Larcenia Row. Smile. Here we go.
Smile.
All right, well, obviously. We're gonna, dude, I'm gonna say this, and I think you'll understand that I'm giving you a compliment, because obviously with the way that you write your music, this is the goal. But like, this is the second song I've heard from you, because after I did the last one, I was like, we're definitely gonna have this guy on the channel, so I'm not gonna listen to anything else. Dude, your music kind of hits like smelling salts. Bah, you know what I mean? Just like crack, right? And dude,
Right.
I'll be 36 this year. I've been listening to metal for a long time, and like it's nasty, but obviously nasty in a really good way. Nasty vocals are my whole thing. So obviously, you know, I'm going to ask you some questions about your vocals, and my first question here is going to be about those low tones, right? This is something I ask. And obviously you have a lot of different vocal sounds and a lot of different vocal styles. So, you know, this probably doesn't apply across the board, but one of my most common questions I get from my students is, what is a scream supposed to feel like? So when you're doing that really low, that really gurgly, really like, you know, cavernous sound, what does that, just in your best description, what does that feel like inside of your throat, inside of your mouth, inside of your forehead, anything like that?
I would say, like, when it comes to the throat, it's not really a whole lot there. It's become so comfortable now that it's like I don't really feel a whole lot when it comes to like pushing it. I don't know. It feels very natural now. When I was first starting, it was the opposite,
Sure.
where I like was trying to find that sweet spot. I do think like the tongue placement makes things, a lot easier when it comes to being able to work against your tongue in certain ways. So, whether you're doing a, normal like tongue to the roof of your mouth or going, downward with more of a tunnel, they both feel different. I love the feeling of a tunnel in that scream and those first lows. That's not a tunnel. But there is a layer of highs layered on top of it to make it pop more in the production. I do the vocal production as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, there is a little bit, there is two sounds that you're hearing there that just bring a little extra texture to it.
Sure. Okay. And then how much do you find, I have my answer for this, but I'm not going to say it because I want to hear your answer for it. How much do you find tongue position and, tongue placement, I guess we could say it, maybe is a better way to say it, is important to your technique? How much do you find that like the position of your tongue, those like fine-tuned spots, like kind of make or break a tone?
Everything. It's tongue placement is everything.
Yeah.
Like I've done like more like hardcore metalcore projects in the past, and that's very straightforward. I can do like just more of like a belty scream or something where it's just, I don't have to worry about the tongue placement nearly as much. But with deathcore, it's all about making a certain tone. So like the mouth shape and the tongue placement really is everything. It changes the way, and it just experimenting with it through recording the Larcenia raw material, fine tuning those positions and trying multiple different positions and being open to experimenting. That really did formulate the Larcenia raw sound for sure. It's different than everything else I ever did.
Yeah, I think that's like such an important part for anybody who's wanting to be a deathcore vocalist, like specifically to get like that signature deathcore sound, is like you really have to be willing to spend a lot of time just sitting at your desk or, walking outside, making like the most ridiculous noises, and most of them are going to suck. But then you'll find a spot that's like super, super fine tuned, super resonant for what you're looking for. If you feel up to it, you don't have to, but if you feel up to it, I'd be interested to hear that low with your tongue position, and then what it would sound like with a neutral tongue position. Cause that's one thing I find is really useful for my students. I'll do like the, and then they're like, okay, but what's happening under there? And it's, you know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to hear those two back to back if you feel up to it.
Sure. Yeah. So just that basic low, like, so that type, like, it kind of sounds like a like a ER, like if you're saying
Yeah.
It almost blends into everything I say with that tongue position. So like ripping pedals, and a lot of it is, small mouth position. But if I took the tongue out, big pedals, it's very just, it sounds boring to me. So,
yeah.
So I think, I really care about a tone and making it sound a specific way. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. Can you open it up to an ah? So you're like that, and then open it up to just like an ah. Like if you were, go, I'm sorry.
With the tongue position?
Drop it all. So it's almost like you're saying ah at the dentist, but with the grit going on.
I instantly started tunneling a little bit by dropping my tongue. I'm so used to it.
It's such a habit. For me, it's tongue up. Everything's tongue up.
Right.
But it sounds like a lot of your technique for this low, this is part of the reason I always like to peel everything away, because we can hear what's really going on under there. It sounds like a lot of this technique for your low comes from like, it's comes from like this, like the wheezing, like it's not something I do, but like the wheezy old man. Is that how you kind of found your way to that low tone?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of it, like before, it's like when you first get into lows, you think, and this is for a lot of deathcore vocalists or metal vocalists in general, you think of like that Cannibal Corpse low.
Yeah.
And that's not really something I could do. It like just didn't work for me. And so when I started experimenting with, that tongue placement, when I do that, where on the top of my mouth, which is tough, it's, listening to guys like Phil Bozeman, for instance, he has this like, you listen to his voice and there's almost a shape to it.
Yeah.
You can almost like hear a shape to his voice. And so for me, I was more worried about trying to shape a sound. That makes sense. But yeah, I mean, where it comes from, it's, a lot of it is my diaphragm, the base of everything. And like, I just don't notice much up top compared to when I was first starting.
Sure. Well, I have about a million more questions, but we have a song to listen to. So
let's do it.
So let's do that. It's interesting because while I would never say like I'm against the wheezy old man exercise, I have seen so many people like go so many different wrong ways with it. So clearly it can work when done properly. Right. But it's always one of those where people are like, should I do this? And I'm like, should is a funny word. You know what I mean? But let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. Jesus Christ. So I have never heard. So all right. I'm trying to think of where to start. Man, you know what, like picking, and it's interesting because I've never had this, and I mean this, picking out like the little things you're doing vocally kind of feels like I'm at like one of those like sushi restaurants where it's on like a conveyor belt, but the conveyor belt's going way too fast. And I'm like, shit, damn it. It's okay. Right. Okay, here it comes. I want to, right. And I think that's cool because it entices you, me anyway, to listen multiple times. Right. Cause there are some bands that I love, but you get everything the first time through. Like you hear the song, you got it. So I think the first thing I want to talk to you about is I've never heard the way that you use that like croaky, creaky high is the way like in the 2010s, like the 2010s people would use like so I'm not a drummer, so I don't know the symbol, but you know how for a while it was really popular in deathcore to be like dun 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 dun, bing.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like
bell
that,
or a splash.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yep. I feel like it kind of hits like that. And it's interesting because you've got multiple highs going on. You have one that's definitely a lot more airflow coming through that you're using for like a lot of articulation. And then you've got that like really croaky one. I want to talk about that croaky high. Because it sounds fairly constricted and concise up in the top of the throat. But talk to me, I know this is really open and vague kind of on purpose, but talk to me about that really croaky, like clicky high vocal you've got going on.
So that was something I discovered. One thing, like if you hear that part in Nose Torque, for instance, where I'm doing that, it's like this weird click sound that I make. And so I'm able to bring that forward into like a elongated scream. So it's very comfortable. I can do it, it's coming from the throat, but it's not like my regular high, which I'm going to try to back up for this, but for my regular high, it's more of a smile that I have to make to get up there. Yeah.
Little pun.
So it's like, and then, when you go back to that other, it's a lot of tongue placement, kind of moving, almost twisting the tongue into a tunnel. But yeah, there's certain pockets where I can, I feel it a lot from the right side, coming forward. And then, when it comes to, doing the, I approach vocals in deathcore as a percussive instrument rather than a voice, if that makes sense. So
it does,
a lot of my cadences, I love rap production. And so I try to use my voice almost as a sample in certain places or a beat. When I think of placing, the production of deathcore is really fun to me. And I feel like, you have your regular lows, your highs, but how can you make it more percussive and rhythmic with your voice? And so that's why you'll hear small little details when I'm doing a vocal run, where I'll change the sound. I'll go, and I'll hit a certain note, and I'm coming down off of it. You get those fun gurgles, and it sounds cool, and people are like, "Oh, that's really, really impressive." It's actually the easiest scream I do by far.
Yeah. I've also found that people tend to be very, very wide-eyed at some of the more easy things to do, and I'm glad you say that, because it makes it sound okay for me to say that. You know what I mean? I think it's interesting. A lot of your vocals that I'm hearing right now in person, a couple just things I'm noticing. It seems like they're definitely very foundationally, the foundation of them is very fry vocal, but it doesn't sound like your typical your typical fry vocal that you might hear in metalcore, right? Or in certain hardcore bands, you know what I'm saying? How long did it, well, I guess, what was your, this is kind of a tough question, because so much of learning deathcore vocals is, rather than following a straight line, it's more like being dropped in a landscape. It's like Skyrim. You go over here, and then you go over here, and then you go over here, and you go over here. It's very much not a straight line. But what was the process of where you started, and kind of how you found your way to these sort of hissy, I don't even really know what to call them. We're going to call them fry focused vocals. What was the process of finding your way there?
Right. So when I first started getting into a more extreme vocal, it was back 2008, 2010, that time period. I was younger. I was in a thrash metal band, and the older I got, I was like, I want to do some of these screams. Could not do it. Could not figure it out for the longest time. But I listened to a lot of that early metalcore, early, and it's weird to even call it metalcore, but early of Mice and Men and Attack, that. I can't even do it now because I could never really do it. But I learned how to somewhat make a little bit of a fry scream back then doing it. And then as I got older, took a break from vocals for a long time. And when I got back into it, I was never messing with tongue placement. And once I started doing so, I was able to make a lot of sounds and things. And, when you listen to, Mitch with Suicide Silence, it's everyone wants to sound that scary. Everyone wants to sound that cool. And so I had to find ways of doing it. A Night in Texas is one of my favorite bands when it comes to those high deathcore vocals. And a lot of it was learning how to, I don't know the terminology, but using the top of the back of my mouth. And almost for me, it's almost getting nasally without getting nasally. If that makes sense.
It does.
So just started experimenting a ton.
Yeah. So here's a question. Woo. Sorry, a little. I got over COVID quite a while ago, but I've had just this lingering mucusy cough. It's a gift that keeps on giving. So let's say you were to have the mouth position right? The oral shape of the vocals that you do, but you put your voice through it. Like you're clean, you're like your true tone voice through it. Like, for example, for my highs, which are much more like false chord floppy, focused. If I take like a and I switch it with my clean voice, welcome to the circus of value. Like I sound like the little BioShock machine. If you ever played that game, everything with me is either a video game reference or a cooking reference. Because those are, outside of music, those are the two things I care about. And my family. So what would it sound like if you took your, you don't have to blend it like that if you don't want to, however is comfortable. What would your high sound like if you, it's weird, but give it a shot.
Yeah. So if I went, like that, it's, if that makes any sense. And then when I do more of the, I don't know. Yeah. See, that's weird. Like I can't, that's a weird layer there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like I get a high sound, but it doesn't feel like it's coming from there.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's kind of the interesting thing. It's hard to explain about metal vocals is that when you're not using your vocal cords the same way as you sing, right? Like obviously with our singing voice, you know, we've got our chest voice, we've got our head voice, we've got our mix. But when different tissues are flapping at different rates, sometimes you get really higher sounds in places where your vocal cords wouldn't create higher sounds.
Right.
And it, you know, that's because it hasn't been super deeply studied. That's kind of as far as I know about it. You'd be a good candidate to get scoped. You know, you'd be somebody I'd want to. I don't have the budget to do that study, but Charismatic Voice, they should get you out there. Because you're doing
that'd be awesome.
You're
big fan of that channel.
Yeah, you're like crazy acrobatic, and it's there's a lot of stuff. But let's keep going here. That's fascinating. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Nope. I was gonna ask you a question, but let's go. I'm pausing it there because there's clearly something good going to happen. So this should be a little bit shorter. One thing that I find really, I'm going to go back a little bit so we have like a picture to like focus on here. We'll do that right here. That's no, not that one. Yeah, there we go. You know, one thing that's interesting, and obviously this is a bit reductive, but like, and obviously I think the false chord fry dichotomy is a little bit old and outdated. Honestly, between you and me, man, I think the entire landscape of harsh vocal terminology needs a hard reboot. But if we're going to use those, like, you know, 2007, you know, learning from a DVD terms, which is what I was a big part of my process. I'm not throwing any shade at it. Some of the advantages of false chord is that it sounds really just naturally gurgly. There's a lot of just like going on in there. One of the advantages of fry is it sounds like super wraith-like just like ripping a piece of paper, and it's like got like this shrieking, just piercing tone. However, I'm noticing that you're doing some of these, which now we know because we've heard you do them live. We'll call them fry focused lows because I think that's the best name for them. Feel free to disagree. But you're still managing to get some of that gurgle, some of that chunk that we associate with false chord vocals. And I think that that's interesting. Certainly not impossible, right? Certainly not impossible, because you can go the other way. You can take a false chord vocal and cinch it up enough to where it has like a little bit of that tearing paper sensation that fry does, but it's not quite the same. So how are you getting that like really wet, garbly on your lows? What are you doing?
Yeah. So for me, it's weird because it actually goes back to that certain high that I do. and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I think of like Mongolian singing. I think you just actually did this on your Archspire video. But talking about like that, I probably won't be able to do it right now, but being able to get that like almost bubbly sound in your throat coming forward. And so when it comes to my lows, like a lot of it, right, you got the you know, those Cookie Monster, the bass of it is what's coming through. A lot of just like my natural voice tone, I can get down there. But when I do a tunnel, that's when it gets really wet. So, and for there, it's just and for me, a lot of it is just trying to like I feel like I get a decent amount of saliva in my throat during vocals, and I think that helps a big time. But I don't know, I'd be interested to see. It's not something that I necessarily try to do, but it feels comfortable and it rocks out. But going back to the highs with it, you know, doing that like it's like you're getting, it's almost like the Will Ramos. You look at the fluid in his throat. It's like you can feel it when you're doing it. Like you can hear it, you know, feel it going there, and you can hear it. And when I do my lows, I don't necessarily get that as much. If I do, you know, tongue on the top of the mouth, I feel like I'm getting almost a little bit through the nose when I do it. So I have the ooh bass, but then so I can get it through my nose with a you know, my mouth closed. So I don't know. This is interesting. I really even like think about these things. I just do it. So this is fun. Super fun.
You did a sound. It's not quite the same as what I'm about to do, but it's similar. You did a sound that was kind of like right, and I use that sound a lot in the way that I do lows. You did something similar. Can you? You might not even remember because it was so fast. Okay.
That's tongue on the roof, and then I go
Yeah.
That's with a tunnel.
So there's a really interesting pass off going on there, because there's a really interesting pass off going there. That like there's probably anyway. I'm just getting excited and my brain is moving faster than I'm talking. So you start off doing exactly the same thing I do. It's very much like an arytenoidal gurgly sound, very like Wake in Providence. Adam Mercer also does it like this.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's a switch where I'm not going to create the same sound. It's not going to be the same sound, but it's what does it feel like, just in your best description, when you're switching from that?
Okay. I feel like I normally almost go straight to it.
Yeah.
But I end up having to find that tone when I've already started the scream. So when I go, like I feel like I'm getting more power up top, and it's almost going over, and then I'm finding that underlayer to it. So it's almost like I do it backwards. You'd think the bass of your scream would be the I don't know. It's weird. I feel like I end up having to focus on it, like getting that undertone.
So are you saying that you feel a lot of the resonant sound rolling around in the back of the mouth?
Like the start of it. Like I end up getting a lot like up front, but it's almost I would say it's almost like the top of my mouth all the way in the back is where I get the start of that, and then it comes forward.
That's interesting, because I start mine, and I'm not going to sound exactly like you, because I've been doing this sound for, well, the first time I do it soon, so 2 seconds. But so when I do mine, I'm here, and then my goal is to just gurgle into my lips as much as possible. So it creates something that's like, so for me, like this, right? But if I I don't even know if I'm going to do it. I'm going to try because like, I don't know. I just want to, right? So if I do it kind of your way, I start here and then move forward. It's going to be like a. Hold on. You got to relax a little bit out of that, don't you?
Right. Yes. Yep.
That's so I sound like an idiot, but it has kind of a similar like texture to yours.
Yes, I can hear it. I can hear it like that. What you just did was actually very impressive to me because I can, when you did it, I could feel it almost when you did it. Like it's yeah.
So this is okay. This is a cool fucking moment because like I don't know everything about harsh vocals, but I know a ton. I know a lot. And this is not something I've ever thought about before. This is literally not something I've ever thought about before. But all I did was I took my technique, which is I was able to see what I do under a scope. I didn't get the recording, but because I've really bad acid reflux, so I get checked out kind of periodically.
Gotcha.
Because there's always a chance, you know. But I got scoped, and so when I do my technique, basically what's happening is we have these cartilage. Do you know what the arytenoids are?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, mainly from you. Like I couldn't tell you a detailed description of what they are, but I know it's talked about a lot, and I know that are they folds or I don't know. You can explain it.
They're those big. If you think about the Will Ramos scope, like above the vocal folds, they look like big basketballs, and they kind of open and close, right?
Yep.
And so when I do mine, they come together and they rattle, and they're rattling like if I was to slow it down like this, doop, 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 right? But when I just did it rather than pointing forward, up and back, kind of almost like an opera singer in some instances, it felt like rather than going doop, 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 they were going boo, they were like bouncing off each other really fast, right? And that creates a really interesting tone that sounds super fry. But I sure didn't feel like I was doing fry, and I don't know where to take that example, which is why you should be the next person to get scoped. That was crazy, dude. I've never made that sound before in my life, and what the hell are you doing?
It's different.
It's different, dude, but it sounds sick. Don't worry, I'm not going to steal your signature sound because like that would not work for Kardashev at all. But anyways, that's crazy. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a couple days. Let's keep going because I want to see what other stuff we discover. One thing that's nuts, dude, is well, let me ask you this about your production, right? This is kind of it obviously depends. It depends on where you're at in the song, what you're doing. But like on average, I'm putting a pause here because this is a question. I've asked this question before and people got kind of defensive, so I don't know why. They I don't know. To me it's stupid, but so I put a pause there in case we want to cut this part out. So now we're gonna be back to it. On average, like in those low sections, how many vocal layers would you say you're using?
So one of them, so for instance, like that first chunk, what we just heard, that was Dan, from Crown Magnetar.
Okay, good. Because I was sitting here being like, that kind of sounds different, but also maybe that's just, I don't know. I know he's in this song somewhere.
Yeah. So that was him. Typically I will never do more than 2.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I don't really like it. And, I actually really love, like, especially highs. I'll usually do 1.
Really?
For lows, yeah. I just prefer the sound of it. And I'm not a wizard when it comes to production. We are fully self-produced. Everything from the music to the mixing, the mastering, we do it all ourselves.
Yeah. Wow.
Myself and Henry Coster. He's he's my buddy. He's my dude.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of figuring it out a lot of the time. And I've always done my own vocal production just because I find it fun. But also, I just know in certain things for my voice, like if I want to come through a certain way, sometimes one layer will do it enough. And, you know, you use compressions, you use your EQs and,
Of course, yeah.
you know, a little bit of reverbs. But sometimes I'll add a little bit of a, you know, it's like very, very sat back vocal layer for the highs, but mostly for the lows. I really do like a single to a double layer. And sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes I'll add a high on top of my lows and it makes them pop out more. Like, I don't know, for some reason, I feel like it enhances the low sound.
Yeah.
When it cuts through the mix, because when you go very low, it's really like someone like Ben Dor, like his lows are so low, like they do magic when they can get it mixed so well. And for me, I really I don't like super wide panned vocals when it comes to a mix for me personally. But, you know, you listen to Spite, Darius is a freak. He's like my favorite vocalist to watch. He is just on a different level. Yeah. But I know in some of their past stuff, they did a lot with those doubling on, you know, wide panned, and it sounds really cool. For me, I'll toss in some doubling and stuff for sure, just to kind of beef up some sounds. But I often find like it's hard for me to really just enjoy the way that it cuts through when it's too much. You know, I'm very not self-conscious in the way that the vocals are gonna be portrayed. Like in Unhinged, that was our first single we ever put out. Sometimes it got a little distorted with the vocal production, but for here, you know, there is a long held out low where it's Dan and I. Oh, cool. And so it's interesting. But yeah, most of the time, never more than two typically. I mean, there's been times for sure, but yeah, for the most part, just two.
Interesting. Yeah. Now I don't produce all my own vocals, so I don't know what happens when we send them away, but I double everything. I double track everything. Right. I don't know if he uses it right when we send it off to our engineer. Maybe he's like, we don't need that. I literally couldn't tell you. The most I've ever done, now this was purposefully to be as gratuitous as possible, was at the end of a track I did for a band called Vail. It's called Glioblastoma. I think I did 9, which is a weird number. Name. Yeah, dude.
Wow.
I only did the one track. Before me, it was a really great vocalist named Tony, also here in the Valley. Well, at the time, I don't know where he lives now. But yeah, Viremia, glioblastoma. We did, I think it was 8 or 9. And then it was the same thing at the end of Beyond the Passage of Embers on our most recent album, Liminal Right. There's just so, because like, I was like, I almost want it to sound like, you ever seen those videos on TikTok where it's like they're walking through the woods and you hear like, it's usually a fox. But you hear just like the most blood curdling scream, and because it's like in the woods and stuff, it's just so thick and spooky. We didn't hit that, right, but it ended up sounding kind of neat.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
It's a weird song. It's a weird song. I mean, I love it, but it's 12 minutes or 8 minutes or something. It's weird. Now you mentioned Darius. So let me actually ask you, this is a really important question. Who are some of your vocal inspirations as far as like, well, you know, I'm not going to pigeonhole it. Who are some of your vocal inspirations just in general?
I think like for me, when it comes to those lows, you know, you have Phil, who is obviously he's the GOAT, in my opinion. But Mikkel from Opeth.
Oh yeah, wow, yeah.
His low, and I think Phil's actually said this. His low to me is the best. His lows and his mids. I think he has the scariest sound there is. There's just something, and his voice is beautiful on every level. But I you know, when I was in middle school, I started listening. A close family friend, Jason, he got me on Opeth. And I was like, whoa, what is this? This is next level. And his screams, like that, like I don't know, it's like I can't even do it, but he like has like so much, it just takes up so much room with his scream. It's so powerful, and he's playing guitar when he does it.
Yeah.
And they don't make that these days, you know, like you can't find that these days. And you know, yeah, he's huge. You know, and you can't not be influenced by the Wills and David Simonich from Signs. Like, you know, you just can't not be influenced by them. But when it comes to, you know, a vocalist that I think is really setting the bar today, it is Ben Dur from Shadow of Intent. I think he is, I wish I could do some of the, like that low sound. I wish I could do it. And you know, I'll work on it for the rest of my life, but I don't think I'll ever touch him. I just feel like he's like the next guy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, you know, one thing I love about Ben's voice is that it's very like, obviously it would stay within metal, but it's very cross genre. You know what I mean? Like, I won't put out any names because people would think I'm insulting somebody and then their fans get all salty. But like, you take some of these like big name deathcore vocalists who are killing it in deathcore, you couldn't put that on like an old school death metal song. You couldn't put that on a prog metal song. Now they could probably adapt. I'm sure they could adapt and change up their style. I'm not saying they don't have the capability, but with Ben, I feel like you could pluck that vocal style. You could put it on death metal. You could put it on prog metal. You could put it on, you can put it in a lot of places. And I that's one thing I like about his voice. Let's talk about your voice. Let's go ahead and let's do it. Let's do it. Let's round out this song. It looks like we got a little less than a minute left. Here we go. It was nuts, dude. You know what that video kind of reminds me of? Did you ever play that old PS2 game? I think it was called Manhunt.
I know of it. I never played it, but you know, I've watched like some like YouTube videos and like some of those old school games. Yeah, that's for us. So we again, we produce everything. So the videos, everything. And we were going for like a dark web type visual. And you know, it's like that's kind of our thing. At that time we didn't, you know, release much information about the band whatsoever. It was a mystery for a little while.
Sure.
You know, back when Nose Torque, you can see the thumbnail there. You know, we had that, you know, we were just pushing it. And I think the heaviest thing ever, it's like, yeah, you can have a dark visual. But one thing that you'll find in all of our tracks is silence. And I think that is the heaviest thing there is nothing. Because your brain becomes open to, all right, what is happening? What is next? And so when it comes to our visuals, like you'll see, whereas it's that pause, you know, the coloring on the screen gets dark and like you can see something, but it's really just trying to get you thinking. And so, yeah, when we produce all of our own stuff, like we do not want it to look very good. We want it to look like it is, you know, made on a phone or, you know, whatever. Like that ending part, that's filmed on a laptop. We want it to be like a webcam. And so, yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. I absolutely love doing it. And it's, and I'm just going to pitch this I believe when this comes out, our next single will be released, Onlooker, featuring Yasmin from Face Yourself. That's so awesome. Very, very excited for that. She's, you know, they're the next band, I think, for the up and comers. They should be killing it, but they should. But that song has visuals that were pretty fun to make. That's all I'm gonna say. And you know, you can, you know, check out our YouTube page. We have a plastic series, and it's just a 3-part video clips, and nice. You can just see where we have fun, and a lot of our vibe goes to those early 2000s YouTube videos. the Rubber Johnnies, those videos that make you like, what is going on? Like, what is this? And that was the birth of the creepypasta, dark web type Reddit videos. And, anyway, that is our vibe. And so we play into it big time.
Whenever I think about those, like, I mean, I guess it wasn't that long ago, but it was a while ago, those creepy pasta videos, I always remember that guy who talked like this. He walked into his apartment and then he was dead. I always remember.
Brilliant. I mean, that great marketing. You remember it forever.
Oh, dude, forever. This is weird. This one of the thumbnails is one of my favorite albums of all time, and it is not a popular album, so that is wild to see.
That's awesome.
They spelled the band name wrong though, so that's good. But so one last question I want to ask you before I wrap up, and I think this is one of the most important questions to put out there is, what advice would you give to new vocalists? Let's say there's somebody out there who they're watching this video and they see you and they're like, man, I'm going to learn how to do that. Or maybe they're a month in and they're doing okay, but they're struggling. Like, what would you give to those like brand new vocalists as far as advice is concerned?
The first step with anything, this goes back to my fitness background, and make sure the base level of everything is where it needs to be. Hydration is probably my number one tip for any vocalist. Not for your throat, it's for your muscles. It's making sure you're fully hydrated. And with that, treat your voice like it is a muscle group when you're in the gym. Like, you have to train it consistently. You have to recover. If you're doing a movement in the gym and it starts hurting, you should probably take a break, right? So experiment safely, hydrate as much as possible. And then another thing is start recording yourself on, through a cell phone, buy a snowball microphone and start recording it, get a cheap DAW and start experimenting. And when the time comes and you start getting into your own vocal production or recording, and maybe not for a final EP or LP, but you're going to go in and start practicing on, all right, how do I produce certain sounds? How do I mix it? And start experimenting. Don't be fearless. Don't try to sound like every other vocalist you hear. Like, I'm going to say this, grow some courage. That's what I'm going to say. Grow some courage. And I was going to go another route with that, but grow some courage and really start to get comfortable with getting weird. Cause that's when the beauty of metal, it is weird. These sounds we make, they are weird, but there's beauty in it. And so, go out and try it, experiment safely, make sure you're prepared to do so. And once you build that baseline, start experimenting and reaching out, and you'll be blown away with how far you can make it with consistency.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. I like that you mentioned recording yourself, because I think one trap that a lot of new vocalists get in is they will only record something if it's a final take. But right. I've never learned as much about my voice when putting down final takes as I have when just opening up Reaper and being an idiot for 15 minutes. That's where, at least for me, I have learned the most about my voice, when I'm not worried about it being a final take. I'm just like, what would happen if, you know what I'm saying? So that's very good advice. That's super good advice. And then last but not least, obviously you've talked about your YouTube channel and the upcoming single, but is there anything else people should be excited about, or anything else people should plug into? Do y'all have a Patreon that people can support you on? Anything like that?
So we've actually been discussing a Patreon because we do like making content. But if you do want to see content for free, follow us at Larcenia Row _ on Instagram. That's where we post most consistently. You can follow us on Facebook. But yeah, check out our short films, Plastic, and at this point, you will see Onlooker. Make sure you check that out. Whether it's Spotify or Apple Music. Onlooker features Yasmin from Face Yourself, and we're very, very excited for this. This is going to be the first song off of our LP that we're working on. And again, we are self-funded like pretty much every band these days. But if you do want to support us, you can, through Spotify, you can buy our merch. But if you go search Larcenia Row official Shopify, you will be able to buy some merch. We got some really cool things popping up on there. But yeah, we appreciate the love. And again, this is what the most important thing is. Just don't forget to smile. That's the biggest thing. We want our music to be fun, and that is our we really do want our music to bring you guys some joy. So